We'll just start. Okay, we left off last time. We were finishing the Simon today. It's left off in the Ha'aras in going through Sif Bays. We'll try to finish off Bays Gimel Dalet Hey. Just Ha'aras LaHalacha. Mishnah Berurah in the end of Sifkat Nun Vav brings down the Be'ez Tzarech. You can be Samach on the Rishonim, the Ran, and all those who hold like the Ran would bring the Yerushalmi, that one Tanai is enough to be Samach on even Chatchila when it's a Be'ez Tzarech. Like Be'ez Tzarech would be, for example, like we spoke about, the taking off the tefillin, add water to it. That's Be'ez Tzarech. You roll them around. So you can only, at the best, have one Tanai, have Daitul Haxer. And the Mishnah says that since, according to the Ran, Be'etzem, and it does not just the Ran, the Bir Halacha brings that it's a das of many, that we samach on the Yerushalmi, that Tanai Echad is enough, whether it's das or it's Biyado is one Tanai is enough in the Ran. And Mishnah Berurah says the minig lahakel Be'ez Tzarech, even if it's in Yech Agabi Karka, based on their mother. Rama says that Nagu lahakel afilu Agabi Karka. So certainly Lachatchila you can be meko when needed, having one Tanai when it's going to be difficult to have it in your hand and have Daitul Haxer, that you're allowed to be a samach on that. That's what the Mishnah Berurah there says. It's interesting that there's an interesting style. Let's say you took it off. You took it off with Daitul Lo Haxer. Then you realize it was betois. That you made a mistake. You thought let's say you're going to finish off all the food, and you realize that you only used half. And if you would have known there's more, then it would have been a tosh. You would have for sure wanted to leave it on for the next day. So Shlomo Zalman holds that the tila b'tois, you've taken it off with das. If there's a tois in the das not to be machzer, then you are allowed to put it back. We consider that a tois. We consider that not daito to be misalik the whole Shehiyah. Rather, you could be somewhat siruf as far as around that anyway. You don't need Daitul Haxer. That with the according to the Yerushalmi, anything that happens on Shabbos itself, on Shabbos Gufa, is always going to be okay. So with siruf that, and Netila B'tois, he says, is not considered a Netila, and you can put it back as well. Okay, let's talk about a couple of things that are very matzui. That let's say you have an electric plata, an electric hot plate, and it goes out. You have a electric what do you call it, a power outage, and now it's out. So, or it can happen also with your cholent pot. You have your cholent pot going, and there's now a power outage, but you have a gas stove going with a blech over it. So now it went off completely. Now it's for all intents and purposes, the pot is sitting. If it was on a, one second, there's people saying they're locked out. I'm not sure why. Let's see. There's people trying to get in. They're saying they're locked out. Jory, you have any idea what's going on?
Yeah, I got it. Sorry about that.
Okay.
It's an updated version of the Zoom.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good. So again, the situation is that you have your pot on an electric warming plate on a plateau, or let's say you have the cholent pot where it belongs in the crock pot thing, and then all of a sudden electricity goes out. But you have a gas stove going it's covered. In addition to that, you have a lot of people coming. So can I now take off? I'm not transferring it now from fire to fire, because it's not on a fire right now. The electricity went out, so it's just sitting in a cold place. So this is the machlokas of poskim, but according to Rav Moshe and Rosh Zalman, they say it's mutter because it's not like, even though it's off completely, it's not considered like lahiniach agabi karka. Even according to the poskim and machmir agabi karka, they say this is not considered agabi karka, because lahiniach agabi karka needs a ma'aseh b'yadayim. Yeah, just like you took it and you put it agabi karka, you did a ma'aseh b'yadayim. It's a ma'aseh siluk that's mafkia the original shehiyah. since over here you didn't do a Ma'aseh B'Yadayim, it just went off on its own, then that doesn't affect your das. It's not considered then a gemar of the original shia, and it's mutter to put it to, because you can transfer it over to the next fire. So that's the minig is like them. The Rabbi Yashiv is cholak on this. He holds that you don't need a ma'aseh as long as it's off a fire. It doesn't matter if it's a ma'aseh or not. It's just off the fire, then it's considered a silik of the shahiyah. But I think the minig olam is like Rosh Zalman and Rav Moshe, Ben in Eretz Yisrael, Ben over here. So like we've had ma'asehs before. In Dallas, it's not so uncommon when there's big storms over here. There's power outages. A lot of times we have power outage here on one side of the street and not on the other side of the street. So we've had sometimes a power outage on the other side of the street. We always keep usually on Shabbos, we always have a gas stove going with a plot over it. So we've had people bring over their cholents from across the street to our fire when the power went out, and they just came back and got it the next morning. That's okay, as long as it's still, obviously it's still warm. Now, the similar shaila is sometimes you have a power outage, then the power comes back on again. So that, according to Rishon Zalman, it's the same thing. As long as it's still warm, then it's not considered a new shahiyah. It's considered a hemshech of the original shahiyah. It's mutter because no Ma'aseh B'Yadayim was done. And again, the shitasam, Rabbi Yashiv, true to his shita, doesn't matter. It's not totally on that. And so he holds that it's not considered like shahiyah. It's considered like chazara. So the nafkamina will be, I mean, if it's on a blech, which is on top of a blech, it's not a problem because anyway, you're allowed to have a, chazara onto a blech. But the nafkamina will be if you have a fire that's not covered. It was sitting on a fire not covered. It was on a hot plate that doesn't have a blech over it. Doesn't have a covering. It's an adjustable one that needs a blech, and you don't have a blech. So are you allowed to leave it there or not? According to Rishon Zalman, you could leave it there. It's like a hemshech of the shahiyah, and Rabbi Yashiv holds it's like chazara. So you have to either take it off and cover it, or you cannot leave it on there because you can't do chazara by an eish and a for custom. But again, the minig is like Rishon Zalman. I think in that we can make all by the shalad rabbanan. That this goes l'shitasa over Rishon Zalman. So if just like we hold that if it goes out completely, you could take it and put it onto another blech. Which I mean, that's obviously that's not a, well, I guess that would be chazara also according to Yashiv. That would not be shia, it'd be chazara. Like shia l'chatchila. And anyway, the minig will be to be makel in both cases. So this could very easily happen on a Shabbaton, that you have the fire goes, the electricity goes out and then comes back on again. Or if, I mean, often you're not going to really have a gas stove going, but if you would, and it would go out, then you would have the heter to take it and put it on the next one. But if it's not covered, you have to somehow cover it with another pot and put it on top of the pot or something in order to make it on top of a fire that's uncovered, to make it into gar for kutzim, to put a pot on top of it and put it on top of that. Like the Shulchan Aruch himself says in the next sif. Okay. Now what the Mishnah Berurah says in Sukkot Samach Beis, Samach Beis, talks about that the food has to be in busha cold sorko. So he didn't talk about this, but just we'll throw it out there just to know it's a very famous machlokas that I know about if you haven't seen it before. But it's a tremendous machlokas between Rav Moshe and Rishon Zalman. That if you let's say that the situation will be that Friday night in Eretz Yisrael, or was used to be, I don't know if these days, I don't know, in my days it was like this, that nobody had meat in their cholent, people had chicken in their cholent. So you threw like whole pieces of the chicken legs on the cholent. And one of those most geschmacka things to eat for me was always to eat the chicken bones the next day, when it gets real soft, really geschmack. But I guess that's not so much in America to do that. The shalom be, if you have the cholent, which is the whole cholent is mushkal sarko, including the cholent meat, the chicken in there is also Friday night. It's already, you put it on, let's say Friday early. So by Friday night, it's everything is totally cooked. It's all edible. It's not really so cholent yet, but it's edible. So everything's edible except for the chicken bones that are inside the chicken, because that takes till the next morning for those to get soft enough to eat. So could I take off the cholent, add water to it if it needs water, and put it back on? Then is that considered already everything is supposed to go through. I can ignore the bones, or the bones. The fact that bones are going to get cooked better. It's not yet supposed to go through on the whole chulin, because I not yet cooked the chulin bones to the way that they become edible. So Rav Moshe wrote a major tshuva that's not a problem. He brought riots from all over Shas about bones, and he held it's not a problem. For Shlomo Zalman, in a amazing act of anivus, asked Rav Moshe Rishus to write a tshuva against his tshuva to show why it is a problem. Rav Moshe granted the tshuva, granted the Rishus, of course, and so Zalman writes in the beginning of his tshuva, "I'm writing this with the preface that I have a Rishus from Moshe to write the tshuva against his tshuva." And he proceeds to go through all of Shas, just about anywhere that bones are mentioned, and brings rayas off from all over Shas that chicken bones are a problem if you want to plan to eat them the next day, which they do in Eretz Yisrael. So Moshe wrote back at Tshuva, answering up all of Shlomo Zalman's rayas. He stayed with his shita, but he ended off saying, even though I wrote what I feel, but halacha k'Rav Shlomo Zalman in Eretz Yisrael. So you're not allowed to follow me in Eretz Yisrael. You have to follow Rav Shlomo Zalman, and if you live in Eretz Yisrael, my jurisdiction is for Chutz La'aretz, and Rav Shlomo Zalman has the jurisdiction over Eretz Yisrael, so he holds it's a problem. Therefore, you cannot do it in Eretz Yisrael. So that was Rav Moshe Psak, which is this on its own right is an exemplary exhibition of anilus and kavod Torah on both ends, on the both of the Rav Shlomo Zalman and Rav Moshe, both the incredible kavod they had for each other. Rav Shlomo Zalman once told me with a lot of simcha, with a big smile, he told me that whenever Moshe comes to Eretz Yisrael, he comes to visit me. It wasn't that often, but he was very excited to see her, to talk to Moshe. Moshe came to him to visit. Okay, going on to Sif Gimel. Shulchan Aruch and Sif Gimel says, where are we here? That if you get up in the morning, it's already getting hot, you're afraid it's going to get too hot, so you can take it off, put an old pot there, which is empty, and put it on top of there, and then you cover it, so it's considered gar for katam. And as long as you're careful not to put it al gabi karka, and that it's still hot. So again, only the Shulchan Aruch's machmer like shita, that al gabi karka is usher, and the Ramah says that we already said that even if it was al gabi karka, no gul hakel, even if you had to do that in order to do this, to be able to do this situation. So in the Mishnah Berurah, Sifkat and Pei Aleph, he chazers over what he said previously in the Bir Halacha, based on the Rambam, that not only on top of a pot, but also on the hafsaka of a ma'aziva, which would be like some kind of a board or a metal plate, like we have the metal blechts. That's all considered gar for katzim. You're allowed to leave it there as well, which is not like Chazanish. The Chazanish is docha the raya. We mentioned this in the previous year. We mentioned this a few times already. We learned the sugya as well, that the raya was from the Chazanish brought a raya from Rashi, that Rashi said to put it on top of the metal covering over the stove. In those days, that was considered al gaba as opposed to gar for katzim. And Chazanish brought a raya from there that we see that al gaba is still considered al gaba. If you put a metal plate, that's not considered gar for katzim. It's considered al gaba, probably because you didn't do anything to the gufa eish. That was Chazanish's raya, and we were docha that raya. So Rav Moshe was docha that raya, that it's that was only in those days when that was the normal way of cooking. That if it got too hot, if you wanted to be in a certain spot, you would put it on top of the metal plate. But bisman hazeh, nobody cooks on their normal stove. Nobody puts a metal plate over their stove to cook. So it's totally nicker that it's you're not cooking in the normal way, and that's why it's a hecker for gar for katzim and Shia and Chazara. So now the Chazanish, even though the Shulchan Aruch says over you could put a pot there, so the Chazanish holds that you can't bring a rye from a pot to a metal plate because what we call blech, because he says that shiny kadera, it's nikeris, that it's not from the kira at all. It's nicker. Any pot is obviously not part of the cooking process, part of the kira itself. And number one. Number two, he says that putting on top of a pot is considered like smicha, some sort of like the sugi of smicha. You're putting it next to the stove and not on top of the stove. So putting it on top of a pot has a din of smicha, says the Chazon Ish. But but as we said, that we paskin that it is good, and covering her with a layer of metal is okay. But now, it's important to know that what's commonly used to cover things over is aluminum foil, and just to know that Rosh Hashanah says that the aluminum foil only works if you have a good few layers of it, which in some way minimizes the heat. If you have just one layer of aluminum foil so thin, it doesn't do any kind of minimizing the heat. Lashon Shulchan Aruch was that based on the Rashi, that has to be lamayat choymai, has to in some way minimize the heat. So let's say like the crock pot, some people put like it's just one layer of aluminum foil in there, and they think you take the crock pot out and put it back in again. One layer is not enough. You got to put a couple, 2, 3 layers to make enough kamina in it in order to be able to do וחזרה. If you want to take it out, put it back in again, to add water and put it back in. Okay, going to Sif Dalid.
I have a question, Rabbi.
Yes.
Didn't we say that Rashi, because he sees it at mana, then that's why he says the Mayat Chomo, which is but all the other poskim are not mekasher to like atmana, so why are we choshesh for lemayat chomo?
Well, the fact is that the Shulchan Aruch that doesn't learn like Rashi, atmana, Shulchan Aruch goes like the Rabbi Shonim, but the Shulchan Aruch quotes that lashon the Mayat Chomo. It's also lashon atur. So obviously there's more to it than just the Rashi said it maybe because of atmana, but other Shonim could say it that it's only considered a heker if it's a Mayat Chomo. Because the tour who doesn't learn like Rashi does say it, and the Shulchan Aruch quotes that. So we see that it somehow has to be that time in some way.
It's a Ravon Cutler's. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
Ravon Cutler's thing about covering the knobs, that's in addition to covering the heat, right? Because otherwise it's going to be
right. It just well, anyway, it depends. Ravon Cutler holds that's all you need. Or Moshe holds the other way. The main thing you need is really this. The flame is just that he's kosher for the other side. Also says that one should cover because since the covering the flame today doesn't have the added nakuda that it's a heker in the makam chatia, the makam lachtos, the place of adjusting. Because today it's cholak. There was all one place. It was the same coals that you raise the heat. You also that's a place where you stir. Today the stirring and the heating and the heat is 2 separate places. So Moshe, you should do both.
But according to Ravon Cutler, you're not covering the heat. You're not Mayat Chomo at all. So how does that work with the Shulchan Aruch and the Torah?
Because I guess he must have held that the Mayat the heat, that's the main thing is that it's a heker for the it's only a heker in the chatia when they're all in the same place when you're Mayat the chom, but if you directly do something to the place that you're machata with, so then that's really the ikr.
Can I ask a question on the previous shot because I just couldn't unmute before?
Yeah.
So it's like been a little confusing in the sources. Chazara you can do even if it's misamik v'yafalo, like a cholin on Friday night will get better the next day, but you can still do chazara. It's not an issue.
Yes.
So it's only a special chazara.
As long as it's bishul sarko, because there's no longer, it's not considered bishul anymore. I mean, we have a few different shitas. We had many shitas of trying to hold that it's not bishul anymore after macham ben dersoy. You can do chazara after macham ben dersoy. Right. So that we're macham like the other shonim that's shitas the Rashba, the Ran, Kamar trying to hold that way, but the Rush and others hold that it's only when it's a bishul sarko that from that point on, then it's no longer a bishul.
But why is there no gzir shem yechata?
Gzir shem yechata I mean, there are that's gufa. That's part of the machlokas. If you hold like, it depends if you hold like Mechanani or not. If you're holding like Enochanami, according to the Rabbanan, so there is gzir shem yechata. It has to be mistana koralo. Otherwise, you're arichosh shem yechata unless you have a blech. Once you have a blech, then we're not choshesh anymore shem yechata. Now it's just a new shala of its mixed kamavashal to do chazara.
And mixed
So the two
mavash
separate.
will apply in which scenarios in terms of yafalo ralo?
Well, if it's mixed kamavashal, we don't really find a chilik in that. Inside mixed kamavashal, we don't find a chilik where there's stamach yafalo and stamach ralo. We don't. Mixed kamavashal is really totally in. If you're doing like a mice, it looks like a new maisa hanacha or shia or chazora without garvakatim, that would be mixed kamavashal. Nobody differentiated mitzvah mixed kamavashal. What's the state of the food? We'll see more about that in a minute. Actually, that's an important nakuda. We'll get to in a minute. Okay, we'll get to that. Now, just to speak out here, the Beis Yosef brought down the Rabbeinu Yonah. Beis Yosef quotes Rabbeinu Yonah, which says that in order to be bishul, when it says that you can do chazorah, it has to still be bushel, it has to be still roischim in order to do chazorah. If it went down from, if it's lost its koach arasicha, its ability to cook, according to Rabbeinu Yonah, we might have spoken this. Did we discuss this last week? I don't remember. Well, the Rabbeinu Yonah holds that if it loses the koach arasicha, which means that let's say right now it's being in a kli rishon, you take a pot off the fire with, let's say, boiling water in it. So since it's still in the pot of the kli rishon, it still has its koach arasicha, even though it's off the fire now. We say that kli rishon mavashal. So you put an egg into the water, you put certain things into the water, it's going to cook it, even though it's off the fire. That's the koach of mayim and a kli rishon, that they still have koach arasicha to them. According to Rabbeinu Yonah, if you put the water in a state that it will not be any more able to cook, so then it will be its ability to cook. Now you give it back an ability to cook. Let's say you take water, take it off the fire, and pour it into kli sheni, and then you pour it back into the kli rishon, and then put it back onto the fire. So when it went to the kli sheni, it lost its koach arasicha. It can't cook anymore. We said kli sheni ain't a vashel, so it lost the ability to cook. So by putting it back on the fire now, you're returning to that water ability to cook. That's considered bishul, points to Rabbeinu Yonah. So that's there's kashas on that. The core we have arrived from, there's a more in Kufman Ham and Bays. What's trying to go to the Rabbi Abba. They used to cook this tarnagolis till the mamish got so soft that it was like falling apart. And then it says when you took it out of the water, you're allowed to put it back into a kli rishon again. So you see that you're heating it back up again. It's okay. So the Rishonim already Machal can say that there it's different because it's yavesh. Davar yavesh, the koach habishul stays within it, even though it cools down. We say that the shinui that was caused to the object, to the food, when it's a davar yavesh, when it's a dry food, let's say like a chicken, so it's still fully cooked even though it cools down. You can still eat a cold piece of cooked chicken. It's totally tastes cooked. I'm thinking water, their whole virtue, the whole koach of water, or liquid things, the koach of bishul is not just they were muvishal once, but that they have the koach to do what they were doing up until now. That they have the resicha to them. That's what Rabbeinu Yonah shita. We have mikatza lekatza. We have the Rashba and others of all that. Even water that was once cooked, and it was, even if it's totally cooled down, it's midaraisa. There's no bishul, and bishul achabishul, even with water. Once it was cooked, it still remains cooked. But we're machmir not that way. But then we say if it's cooled down, there's still a problem. But we generally, most of the time, hold that even if it is a problem, it's only if it's cooled down less than Yatzaleta spoke, or according to the Ramah and Shini Ches Tes Vav. It comes up again and again and again. The Ramah holds that as long as it stays warm, it doesn't have to even be Reseach anymore. Shulchan Aruch holds you always need Reseach. If it goes below Yatzaleta to go back up again, that's for sure bishul. And so we have, like, let's say we'll say four shitas over here. There's one shita holds that once it was, even water was cooked once. Rashba and others Rishonim hold that once it was cooked once upon a time, even though it cooled down, it's not no in bishul chabishul. Then you have that we hold in the middle that if it went down from its Rasika, the Shulchan Aruch holds if it's still Yatzel Lettucebo, then there's no Bishul Achar Bishul. If it went below Yatzel Lettucebo, there is Bishul Achar Bishul. The Ramah and it's an Shinid Ches Sif Tesvav. The Ramah holds that as long as it's still warm, even though it's not Rasika anymore, it's still not Yatzel Lettucebo anymore. As long as it can still nicker in it, it's warm enough when you drink it, you're feeling like you're drinking warm water, not just cold water. It's not room temperature. It feels a little good and warm still. So then the koach habishul is still nicker in it. And then the other katza from the Rashba is the Rebbeinu Yonah that holds that it's not even enough that it's Yatzel Lettucebo. That if it lost its koach harasicha, then it's already a problem. That's just to know this shita. Like enough kamina will be according to Rebbeinu Yonah. So if let's say the case we always have, if you want to the Beis Yosef brings in, it sounds like he's kosher for that from the Beis Yosef. I mean, the others aren't padoch of that, but Beis Yosef sounds like he's kosher for it, which would be a big enough kamina if I have to see the Sephardi poskim if they bring this down or not. I didn't get a chance to look this up, but if Beis Yosef is really kosher for it, then that would be the shita of the Shulchan Aruch in Ken, like the Rebbeinu Yonah, be a big enough kamina. Our case that we always have, we want to add water to the cholent from the urn. So what we always do is we put from the urn cup, you put water into a cup, and then you take the cholent off the fire, add the water in, and put it back on the fire. We can't add it on while it's on the fire, while it's in the crock pot. We can't while it's still cooking. We know we can't put it in because of the kolbo, because that'll be considered like hagasa, like stirring, and that would be a problem. So you have to take it off the fire, put it in, and then put it back on. So that works according to us. The water is still hot, even though it's in a klisheni. As long as the water is still hot, works even according to the ikar sheet of the Shulchan Aruch that is still roseach. It's still Yatzel Lettucebo. Or according to their Ramah, even if the water cooled down in the cup now it's just warm and went below Yatzel Lettucebo, it's still not a problem. You can put it in the cholent pot and put it back on the fire. You're not cooking anything. But where it becomes a problem is according to Rebbeinu Yonah. According to Rebbeinu Yonah, putting it into the cup, it's a klisheni, it's no longer mabashal. So then you put it back into the cholent pot and then back into the crock pot. So then it's going to cook it back up again. It will then the koach harasicha of cooking will return to it. So you'll be liable for bishul from that, from taking it from klisheni back to a kli rishon on the fire. So that's enough kamina, but we're not really kosher for that. We're not the.
Did you put it right from the urn into the cholent pot?
That would be the eitzah according to the Sephardim would be to take the cholent pot, put it under the spigot of the urn, and just put it directly into it, and then put it back on the fire after that. So it never lost its koach or sikha.
So I saw Rav Yitzchak Yosef. He says that even Iroi is a problem. The eitzah that I saw that Rav David Yosef says is to just put a bag of water just in case from Erev Shabbos, and then you just puncture a hole in it if it's necessary. He says that's like the only eitzah that I saw that they actually bring down.
I was wondering about that, if Iroi would be, because we say that Iroi is mavashal kadei klipa, but it's not mavashal mamish. So I was thinking about that. Even if you would, first I thought the eitzah would be like to just pour it straight from the urn into the pot, but because it didn't lose the koach masika lagamre, the question is, what Rebbeinu Yonah, if it still has enough of koach masika to vashal kadei klipa, does that really lose its masika or not? That would be the question.
So they're machmir.
I think that maybe he's machmir because it's a shaila in Yardea. If irui mavashal kadei klipa, is that a lechumra or mikra din? If we're only kosher that it's a vashal kadei klipa, but mikra din it's not, then it's a problem. If it's mikra din it is, so then it still has a koach bishul in it. So then it'll be hard to hear that it's according to Rebbeinu Yonah it's a problem. So it's a complicated shaila, but the Maisa, it might be a problem more for Sephardim Because for Ashkenazim, we have the Ramah that even if it's still warm, it's good enough. Okay, moving on here.
What's interesting is Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, he says that, so he holds that water that even cooled down completely, you can put that water back on the blech or the stove, or not in the stove, obviously. But he says because although it's lach, water itself is mitzamek v'ralo, because you're just losing water as it heats up, and so he's actually not machmir for water by itself. So if you heat up water before Shabbos, or it heats up on Shabbos, and you take it off and it cools all the way down, you can put it back on.
Well, that's a huge Kiddush to say that, because if it's cooled down completely, then many Rishonim hold that it's real bishul. Even if Mistam Karalo is only when it's boiling, but not if it's cold. Now you're over bishul just for heating it up. So it doesn't matter that it's Mistam Karalo. So I don't understand that. So even okay, going on to Sif Hay. Final sif over here in the simon, the Beis Yosef brought in the name of the Ran, and this is what this whole thing starts with, is you're allowed to put panadish. Panadish is a type of like a knish, to put it keneged a madura. You can put it, let's say you have the fire going, and you have a fireplace, let's say, and it's giving off a lot of heat. You can put it keneged hamadura. You can put it nearby, let's say on the ledge next to the. It's not on. We're not talking about a stove. You're putting it adjacent to the fireplace. Why? Because number one, it's a moves are called sarko. It's totally cooked. It's a totally cooked knish, and it's also in derech bishul bakach. It's not the normal way of cooking. You don't usually cook next to a fire. You cook on a stove or on an oven, not next to the fire heating up the house. Just agav, the Beis Yosef speaks this out a little bit. There's a very important machlokas which comes up a number of times in many places in halacha, which is spoken out over here. Is that let's say if it has in it some if it has congealed fat in it, congealed gravy. So right now at the moment it's yavesh because it's congealed, but then it's going to turn into liquid. That's a question if that's considered a liquid, or you look at because it's going to turn into a liquid, or it's considered like a solid, because right now at the moment you put it, it's considered solid. And through that discussion, the Beis Yosef brings down this machlokas, the Ran and the Rashi. Let's say you know that it's going to if it gets the lettuce boil, it's going to start melting, and it's going to it'll get recooked, and it won't be considered cooked. Am I allowed to put, if I know that something's going to get cooked in a certain spot, let's say keneged madura, in a place where there's no problem of Shia, Chazora, and all those problems are not there, you're just putting a keneged madura, you're putting it adjacent to the fireplace. I'm putting it in a spot that I know, something that if I will get to lettuce bow, it will be considered bishul. But I don't want to leave it that long. I just want to take out the chill. I just want to take out the coldness and make it room temperature. So am I allowed to put it in a spot where if I leave it there long enough, it'll turn it into, it will get mavushal, but I don't intend to muvashal it there. I want to take it off before that. So am I allowed? Rashi holds that's mutter. As long as they have das and you put it there for that, with that das and take it away, you're allowed to put it there. But the Ran, and the Ran himself, and also in the name of the Ri, is cholok on that the heter keneged madura is only going to be in a place that it cannot, no matter how long it stays there, will not get the lettuce boil. It'll warm it up, but it will never actually cook it. So this is a tremendous nafkamina lahalacha, where we'll see like later on about, let's say, putting it something on a certain spot on the blech. You want something that has bishul to it. Am I allowed to, if I leave it there long enough, it will be mavashal? Let's say something that has a lot of liquid in it. I have chicken with liquid in it. I just want to warm it up. I don't want to warm it up to the point of cooking it. I just want to take out I want to make it servable, edible for the guests. So can I put it on a place on the blech based on this? That it's not right over the fire, but it could get lettuce in that spot. So that's totally the Machlokes Rashi and the Ran. Ramosha and Tshuva, all the posts can basically say everyone goes with the Ran basically, and so Ramosha, for example, says a chiddush that to put it on the blech on a spot where it cannot get to Yatz Bo, that's mutter, because not only is it mutter for mitzvah bishul, and I'm not worried that there's nothing to worry about because it can't get to Yatz Bo. But Moshe holds another chiddush that spot is not considered al gabe akira; it's considered keneged and medura. Any spot, if you have like a big metal blech, and you have a fire just in one corner, so in the other corner, I wouldn't recommend touching it with your hand. Still get, you could burn your hand on it maybe, but the spot itself might be Yatz Bo. But don't test it out with your hand. I'm saying that from experience.
But then how do you know it's Yatz Bo?
Huh?
How can you figure it out?
Well, you got to figure out some other way, maybe. But I don't know the answer. I had the same question, and therefore I went ahead and tried it once, and I was sorry for a number of weeks that I had to deal with that burn. So don't try it at home.
Healed it's what's called? It's Algaba? Not
no. No. It's a spot that it will warm up, but no matter how long you leave it there, it will not get to Yatz Bo. He considers it keneged medura. So it's not a problem with Shia and Chazara, and it's a keneged medura, and also you can leave it there as long as you want because it can't get Yatz Bo. It all goes together. That's Rosh Chodesh.
Rabbi, for putting like bread on the blech on Shabbos to heat it up, so because it's not derech bishul b'kach, you wouldn't need to create another hecker that it's to remove Mexican mavasha. It's automatically not Mexican mavasha.
No, not. It's not. Again, it's not here what you intend to do. It's going to get to Yatz Bo in that spot.
No, but it's bread, so it doesn't matter. I thought because it's already cooked.
No, it doesn't. Then it matters that if it's a spot that's Yatz Bo, then it's considered al gabi akira, and then now it's a problem of shia l'chatchila. You have to put something else under it to make it okay, like an upside down plate or something to make it okay.
Meaning the fact that it's not derech bishul to put bread on a blech doesn't achieve lo Mexican mavasha. Why not? Isn't that
just because it's like a low plug. Put anything l'chatchila onto the fire. Any food, we said even it's Mustam Corallo, so it's also not shaykh to bishul. We say Mustam Corallo is also considered Mexican. That's what we take on, even Mustam Corallo. The question is, the Mishnah Berurah says that speaks about that chiddush that it's also even Mustam Corallo. So the child is two ways to look at it. That either it's telling us that even Mustam Corallo is still Mexican mavashal. So even though mitzvah even though mitzvah the Michael, it's like you say, like bread, mitzvah will be the same. That mitzvah this food, there's no bishul fact to it at all. It's bad for it. So the chiddush is that even mitzvah ralo is considered still Mexican mavashal, or just a little plug. Really, it's not. It's not just like anything which is not the derech to put it there like bread. Nobody bakes bread on on top of a blech or on top of a fire. But it's just a little plug, perhaps.
So what's the shulchan aruch chiddush with the panadish? Like I don't.
So the panadish is that it's telling you this new halacha of keneged medura. Like from here, Ramosh extrapolates that to include a place on the blech that can't get Yatz Bo, that it's nichlal in this halacha of keneged medura. So this tells us the klal. Now we have to apply it to different situations because you have a spot there that they can't get there.
It seems like you should have used an example where it's not, meaning like the issue is not lo mexa. Sorry, the issue is not that it's not derech bishul because it's bread. The issue is that it's not derech bishul because it's not hot enough.
Well, because then it becomes keneged medura. Like I might have thought that perhaps it's the fact that it's on the same blech that there are places that you can't cook it. That maybe it's all like one shetach. It's one area. It's like one thing. I can't start cutting up the areas. So that's the chiddush of Moshe that we do have different spots on the blech that have different dinim. So a place that can't get the Yatz Bo, it would be nichal on this halacha and say, hey, or keneged medura, which is a new din. Which tells us a few things. It tells us it's not mixed mavashal, and therefore Shia and Chazara, even if chazor lachatchila, you could take the chicken right out of the fridge. You want to take out the cold, you want to not be cold, and put it in that spot. You don't have to put an upside down plate or anything like that in the spot that it can't get to Yatz lettuce bow, no matter how long it's there. So that takes away the mitzvah vashal, takes away from the derech bishul and mixty, and there's no shia and chazara on that spot in the blech.
But if it gets hot enough, someone's like, but if it gets hot enough, it will be bishul, right? So that means that you have to actually be careful that you have
We're
to.
talking about like the cold dry chicken, let's say, out of the fridge.
Gotcha.
It's not shayach to bishul anymore, no matter what you do. Okay. Like that same chicken, like that sugi we mentioned before, trying to go to the Rav Ami, we learned that they took that chicken and they didn't have a fridge, but whatever was protected, and they took it and they put it into a kli rishon of boiling water, which they would heat it up totally. And the chiddush is that by davar yavesh, there's no bishul at all. Put it back in the kli rishon that is mavashal, it's not mavashal this, so it'll just heat it up, but that's not considered bishul by it. So similarly, like we're saying, Mishnah Berurah in Sifkat inside of Gimel says a similar chiddush that the Isra to put something back inside the tanur, it's also unless it's gar for katan, which can't really be by most tanurim. So the Mishnah Berurah says that all that is only if the tanur is still, it was heated up before Shabbos, but now it's still Yatz lettuce bow. If it's not Yatz lettuce bow in the tanur, then he said it doesn't have a shame tanur at all. It's just considered like an empty space. It's like it doesn't matter. So it's a place that's warm, which that would be similar to what Moshe is saying. Moshe is really, I guess, building off of these ideas that it's what I call it, that it's not considered a makom bishul when it's not Yatz lettuce bow, or can't get to Yatz. I'm wondering in the Mishnah Berurah when he says that it's not considered a tanur if it's not Yatz lettuce bow, does he mean if the tanur itself is Yatz lettuce bow, or does he mean if it can't bring something to Yatz lettuce bow? That sounds so clear to me in the Mishnah Berurah. If the tanur itself is Yatz lettuce bow, perhaps it's even if you can't cook something to that point, but it's still considered a tanur. Like tanur has an extra chumrah that to put something inside the tanur, but like inherently it's considered a derech bishul. Mishnah Berurah seems to be like struggling to make it mutter that if the tanur is not it's lettuce bow, then that takes away that inherent din of derech bishul inside of a tanur. I just wonder if you'll be masking if the tanur itself, if you touch it, your hand will pull back because it's Yatz lettuce bow. It's whatever you hold the number of degrees of Yatz lettuce bow would be a problem. But if it itself, the walls aren't that hot, but it can't bring anything else to that heat, but that's still not going to be considered a tanur. That I'm not sure about. Okay.
Yeah, but this would not apply for liquids though, right? Because it has to be focused because it has bishul to it.
Well, again, if it's that's what I said. If the chicken has like a lot of liquid in it, then usually that will be a problem. Besides the chicken, you have a lot of liquid there. But if still that's going to be okay, that'll be the main chiddush over here. That will be okay. Even that will be okay on the spot on the blech. It can't bring it to Yatz lettuce bow.
Okay. And then,
the nafkamina between liquid and not liquid is if it's going to get Yatz lettuce bow.
okay. It's just confusing because the Shulchan Aruch brings an example of solid. That's what he uses for this whole sugya as a solid, not a liquid. So like, why is he bringing out the chiddush by a solid if it's for the chiddush by liquid?
Because I think the stam case over here is that it's going to get the outside as well.
And it's a much chiddush on the.
Now we're adding a new chiddush on top of that. That would be that Keneged and Medura applies to other places as well. And then on top of that, once it's Keneged and Medura, then now we can start clearing whether or not it's going to get the Yatz lettuce bow. Okay, the Mishnah Berurah in Tzadik Hey get into a different subject. So he says that it's usher to tell a goy to heat up a kedera that cooled down the gamre. So that he says that's even if it's not going to be al gabi eish, so even if it's going to be Keneged Medura in a place where there's not going to be an Isra Chazara be'etzem, so you're not telling to be over an Isra Chazara, but since there's going to be an Issa Bishul involved, so we're talking about a drais over here because we have to be cautious that it's you're not allowed to do it to ask a goy to put something. Let's say take a liquid that was already totally cooked, even though it's a machlokas, whether something's totally cooked and then cooled down, if it's liquid, is it bishul or not, like I mentioned before. But since we're machmer that it is bishul, that's the makor for that. You take in the shinyu ches sif dalid and sif tes vav. That's where the Shulchan Aruch passes that a liquid that cools down is considered bishul. It goes less than yatz let us go. However, the Mishnah Berurah says a chiddush that b'di'evid, if the goy did it, if he had, let's say, a liquid, let's say a soup was totally cooked, and then you're finished serving it Friday night, and here's the situation: you had a soup, you cooked, served it Friday night, you're done serving it, you put it back in the fridge, and then the goy wanted to do you a favor the next day. The cleaning lady knows you have a lot of guests coming, and so she wanted to give you a surprise. She knows you could use extra food, so she did you the favor before you woke up to while she's cleaning up. She took the food, she took the soup, and put it back on the fire, back on the blech. You wake up in the morning, and you have boiling hot soup on the blech. So he says b'di'evid, since whether there's bishul or bishul by lach, it is a machlokas. We're for sure machmer, and therefore you couldn't ask her to do that. But b'di'evid, since the issur to use it is only an issur drabanan, so now it goes to a getter safek drabanan lakula. Since there are shitas that hold the ein bishul like the Rashba and other Rishonim that hold that ein bishul bishul lafil malach. So the Mishnah Berurah says that b'di'evid you can be samach to say it's safek drabanan lakula, some of the shitas that you're allowed to eat the food.
I have a question, Rabbi.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out why it would be asur or why just b'di'evid. Because if we say it's a machloket poskim and a Rambam is like matir l'chatchila, and there's even the Yemenite community, for example, they go by that, and it's a machloket, and then is it because maybe there's days that safek deoraita lechumra midoraita lechumra? It's
No,
like not.
no, it's it's machlokas, but the Shulchan Aruch, we have a Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch paskins that yesh bishul achar bishul balach. So that's in Shinus Ches Sif Daled and Sif Tes Vav. And so that's a halacha psuka. Just that he's machriya like those Rishonim that there is bishul, and we're machmer for that. Since that's a psak halacha, so you can't say like everything that's a machlokas, you can ask a way to do it. We don't say that. We have a psak halacha. We have a psak halacha. We paskin. Someone will ask you, is cooking something, heating something up that's lach, is that bishul? You say, yes, that's bishul. That's how we paskin. But just b'di'evid, if it was done, or if it's done, let's say, even according to Sfardim, b'di'evad, it was done. So now it's a different question. Now it's not a question of can you do it. The question is it asur b'hana? Do we say it's asur or not? That's a different shalos. And that for the b'di'evid question, then we can be samach on the Rishonim that hold that it's not bishul, because then it becomes a safek drabanan and klal absak, then it becomes with her. Okay, the Bir Lacha Divramaskal Lahecham over here in this sif says that let's take this case over here 1 second. We'll get it inside here. Yeah, we're talking about doing chazara in a place that a Jew can't do chazara. If you're allowed to do chazara ayidei in Yehudi, So we're holding time. Yeah, the Biur Halacha says a kiddush over here. I want to see which part to quote here. Sorry. We'll just read this together. He says, what the Shulchan Aruch says, the Ramah says, Asur lomar la'eni Yehudi la'heicham hakdera im nistanen. You can't ask a guy to heat up the pot if it's a liquid, if it's cooled down. Im also can asur la'achlo afilu tonen. And you're not allowed to eat it even if it cooled down. So the Biur Halacha says, "Afilu davar yavesh in his bashel mikfarv and it's tanen legamrei." You have a davar yavesh that it cooled down. It was cooked totally and then it cooled down. After ebo mishum shash bishul od, there's no problem with bishul anymore. Like we say in Shinjin Ches by davar yavesh. Afilu hachi aser lachamamo b'tanur afilu ayidei inehudi. You're not allowed to put it into a tanur by a goy. Even though he says our tanur like a kira, still al gabi akira, it's usher to do chazara when it's not group. So we're talking about put it onto any gar for katan by a goy to chazara, that's usher, even though there's no bishul by it. If you do that, I feel the diavad usher. Gambaza kashucham adayan. We hold that if you would do chazara even if something's still hot, then if you got benefit from putting it back on, then it's usher if we did it. Because she had sonin matir b'zeh prima garden b'sif lam zayin. The prima garden is matir if it cooled back down again. So that even though you weren't allowed to do it, it's usher while it's hot. But if it cooled back down again, you got no benefit from the fact that you put it on. Prima garden says it's mutter. And then it says, and the Prima Garden writes further, it came into Kaimalan the shvus the Sorach Shabbos Shrail Chatchila. Davar Yavesh Ein Bo Rak Mishum Shvus the Chazara. After the Mekel Bazeh Aidei in Yehudi Ein Gorim. So he says a tremendous chiddush here in the name of the Prima Garden that if you need this food on Shabbos, so let's say you have a Davar Yavesh that was Mvushal Lagamre, Mvushal Kol Tzarko, and now it's cooled, it's in the fridge, it's cooled down, and all I have is a Kira She'enu Garfa Katan. And I want this food hot now on Shabbos. Rabbi Gadol says that ask a goy to put it on is the Tzarech Shabbos is going to be mutter because it's a double d'Rabbanan, it's a shvus to shvus, which means that the whole Isser to put it on to begin with is only midrabanan because there's no Isser d'Oraisa bishul on it anymore. It's already davar yavesh. It's fully cooked dry chicken. Davar yavesh, and there's no bishul by it. So that's one d'Rabbanan. So put it on the fire is d'Rabbanan. And anything done by a goy is a d'Rabbanan. So anything done by a goy, by a d'Rabbanan, we call shvus to shvus. It's a double d'Rabbanan. So Tzarech Shabbos, he says, Efshar, that you're allowed to tell him to do it, to put it onto the Anagar for Katan. And then he brings also a Marit in the Shari Tshuva later on in Shin Juches. The B'davar Yavesh she'ein bo marak litno letocha tanur ayde in Yehudi avachat chila. So he says, even though it's mashal that in Arsim, that's in Shin Juches. From Arsim, it's mashal from many poskim. Over here in this sif, you can't do that. He says, Mikolacham nira diyesh nismach alav l'tzarech Shabbos halkavazet. So that's the psak of the Biur Halacha, tremendous chiddush. The l'tzarech Shabbos, let's say that's the main food that I have guests coming, and the main food I forgot to take it out. I asked somebody to take it out and put it on the fire before Shabbos, and they never did that. And but it's totally cooked. It was cooked already the day before. So now the Tzarech Shabbos, this would be the main food I'm going to serve, let's say, and so I could ask a goy to put it into the tanur, even though it's going to heat it up and it's not gar for katzum, I could ask him to do it because since the general klal is shvus to shvus, makom mitzvah is mutter, or makom tzorach is mutter. So this is begetter shvus to shvus. One derabanan are putting it on, and a grafikatum, and second derabanan that it's a goy. So that makes it into a double derabanan. That's the psak of the bir halacha. It's very sadistic machlokas over here. Just in Havana, the whole sugya, Chazon Ish is cholak on this Mishnah very strongly, and he says that he tainas that the whole klal of shvus to shvus and makom mitzvah doesn't apply over here, because that klal that's the yesod in, let's say, asking a goy to do a certain maisa, that the whole issur is just the maisa itself. If the issur is the maisa, like the maisa hanacha, the maisa putting it onto the fire, that's the problem. Then enochanami, you could exercise the klal of shvus to shvus and makom mitzvah or makom tzorach. But over here, it's not the maisa of putting it on that's the problem. That does have a problem, Mexican vashal. But so besides the maisa putting it on, Mexican vashal, there's also a problem of the matzah of sitting on that spot is a problem. It's an ongoing kol rega v'rega. It's a problem of shemi yachata b'gachalin. If I put something on fire that's not going for katzum, then I'm close to shemi yachata b'gachalin. So Chazon Ish says, it doesn't matter how it got onto the fire, even if it got on the both in the shalheter, it got on there by even a kof. He says, if your pet monkey, took it and has no das, and just took a pot of chicken out of the fridge and put it onto the fire, so it got there without a maisa at all, it still would your chiyuv would be to take it off of there, because you're not allowed to leave a pot in a matzav, an ongoing kol rega a matzav the shemi yachata b'gachalin. That if the pot goes onto an integra for katzum, we're chosh to shemi yachata b'gachalin. It's an ongoing matzav. So the whole heter of shvus to shvus and makom mitzvah doesn't apply over here. That's the time of the Chazon Ish on the bir halacha. So what we have to say, to answer this, that the one of two things: either the bir halacha is learning this halachor, we could learn that the bir halacha holds that when it comes to chazara, then there is no shemi yachata b'gachalin anymore. Shemi yachata b'gachalin is one gzeira, and that's by Shehiyah. Chazara is a whole different issue. It's mixed kamavashal. We don't find that the Chazal also, like we're extrapolated the issur of shemi yachata b'gachalin to case of chazara. It's two separate isurim, and the question might be why. You could ask, and the Chazon Ish assumes that it is. So it's a little bit of a dochak, but perhaps that's the shot, or maybe the shot is that wherever there's a heter for putting it on there, there's a way to put it on there beheter. So then it's considered that the heter that to put it on there remains throughout the whole shia as well. It's not considered a matzav shel isser as long as if you're allowed to put it there, then obviously you're allowed to leave it there. So we can find a way that, so maybe the Mishnah Berurah will hold that if it went on there al yedei a kof, if it was a maisa kof, it was a monkey put it on there, perhaps he would hold that is no problem. That it has to be in order to be an isser of a hemshech, it has to be an isser l'chatchila to put it there. Since we have in the klali heter of shvus and makom mitzvah, we have a heter, then the heter continues on further as well. But I have to admit that in Sforah, the Chazon Ish makes more sense to me. And we're saying Docha came to try to answer the Mishnah Berurah. Chazon Ish has a very stark kasha on the Mishnah Berurah. But so we have a Mishnah Berurah. Klal Yisrael goes according to Mishnah Berurah. So here you have a case in a Shabbaton. Here you are in a Shabbaton that all the main food was not heated up, and you have the janitor there, in the shul where you're at, in the kitchen. Call the janitor in, and you can, according to Mishnah Berurah, can you take that chicken out of the fridge and that big pan of chicken and put it up here on this stove that's covered over here by this metal thing or whatever, and let the whole thing heat up? According to Mishnah Berurah, that's mutter because it's shvus and makom mitzvah. So we have that to rely on. Sorry?
Yeah, if it's not covered, no, if you just put it onto the stove.
Yeah, right. On the stove, not right. You're right. If it's covered, it's not a problem. We're not covered. that's the whole chiddush of Mishnah Berurah. Like in the oven, it's ain't a gar for katan. That's what we'll need to come. Sorry, you're right. That's what we're talking about over here. There's no cover. The question will be, since it's Machmud Sorchei Rabim over here, let's say for Shabbaton, that becomes Sorchei Rabim, that we have a Ramah later on in Shin Duches to be Samachan, that we're allowed to ask a goy to do even a deraisa Macham Sorchei Rabim, especially if it's a mitzvah Rabim. So not only can you tell him to put it on the fire, you could even ask him to turn on the fire and then put it on. And it's not a problem in Bishul Hakim because it's already been Bishul before.
But also,
Rabbi, at the end of the Bir Alacha there, that's he brings the Birkei Yosef. And that was what I was saying about Machloket a post game and when you're Mako. Seems like a Mishnah Berurah is not holding like him, or he says Tzachiyun. The Birkei Yosef there at the end is even by Lach. If it's Gar.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. That's but this is all by a goy. He says, well, let's just finish it off. Birkei Yosef mitzasi shem'echad min achronim shemitzaded afilu b'davar sheyesh bo marak, even something that has soup in it. It's considered davar lach. L'hakel lahachem l'idei in Yehudi im nitzane. If it cooled down by a goy, if you cooled, you could take a goy, have a goy reheat it. In nosan agabi yeisha akira mamish. You don't put it directly on the fire. Just somech ala postum sobering the ein bishul akar bishul afilu nitzane. Could be rely on those poskim. On the poskim, the whole there's no bishul anymore. Whether you can rely on it. The siman zil mashmaken. This siman is not mashma that way. You have no other choice, and you need it with Tzarech Shabbos. Let's say you had a previously made shulent. You made a Thursday night shulent, and you serve it Thursday night, and then you want to use the same shulent on Shabbos. So, and then whoops, you came in, you realized, oh, we didn't put the shulent back on the fire, and that's the main, that's the main food you need for Shabbos. So he says, let's near the Tzarech Shabbos, you can rely on that. Maybe that's what you meant when I asked the question. He meant by a goy, not himself. Oh, I thought you meant himself to it. Okay.
Oh, I meant by because it's
okay. You said to put it. I thought you meant to. Sorry, I misunderstood you. Yeah, that's the Bir Halacha here that says that already. So this is considered like a b'diavad case again to do it through a goy. So here it's a bigger chiddush because we're talking about you're talking about keneged medur, not actually on the fire. So mitzad shia chazorah, no problem. But there's a different problem that, according to the Shulchan Aruch, that what you're asking to do is actually real bishul because it's nistanen. So it's lach. So that he says that keneged medur, we can rely on the posting the whole in bishul achar bishul balach, together with the fact that it's so that would then to put that keneged medur is not a problem. There's no problem of even derabanan and putting a keneged medur. It's just the visual problem. So you do it through a goy, which is really that makes it a derabanan. So now it's suffered derabanan lakula makom tzorech. If you make all has to do it. Interestingly enough, the Chazon Ish agrees to this. He's cholak on the first chiddush, because putting it on the fire, Mishnah Berurah is talking about on a fire without gar for katzon, like we mentioned just now. So there, the Chazon Ish held that the matzav itself being on the fire, that's an isser, kol rega v'rega. You have to take it off. But here, since the Mishnah Berurah is talking keneged medura, it's not on the fire, but it's adjacent to the fire. So that the Chazon Ish agrees to be samach on the Birkei Yosef and Bachman Tzarech Shabbos, you could be mikol.
Wait, why does it need to be next to the fire to be derabanan? If we're relying on the Rashba that it's not bishul because it was in bishul even by lach, then what does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter for that. It just matters for it takes away the Chazon Ish's taina of kol rega v'rega. That's only if it's on the fire. Is there a chi of taking it off the fire?
But in Achanam, according to the Birkei Yosef, you could even ask a guy to put soup or cholent onto the fire directly to heat it up on Shabbos for the Tzarech Shabbos.
No, on the fire, that's the problem of you can't ask a guy to do shiel chatchila.
No, but I'm not according to Chazon Ish, according to the Bir Halacha.
Oh yeah, according to the Bir Halacha, then
So
Yeah,
why do you-
Hanami, I guess the Mishnah Berurah, when it's quoted Birchei Yosef Keneged Medura, it's the Birchei Yosef might, he might hold that it's only more to Keneged Medura like Chazon Ish, but
Oh,
or that was just the case. But Hanami, the Birchei Yosef himself, you're right, would hold even on the fire shouldn't make a difference. Hanami,
and
Well,
Beth,
sorry.
it sounds like from the Birkei Yosef that even if it not necessarily connected the Madura, but if it's like on top of the Kira, just blech or something, it sounds like that would also be okay.
Yeah, that's what I.
He says in Inu Nusin Agabi Eshu Akira Mamish.
Right, so
So
if it's not mamish on the Kira, but the blech or something, wouldn't that be okay according to the Birkei Yosef?
Well, I guess the Chazon Ish holds that Agabi Blech. It's the same thing. There's such thing as a Blech. So the Shitasa he holds that we have to be talking about Keneged Medura over here. But in Hanami, according to the Mishnah Berurah, you're right. It could be on the Blech, or it could be even without a Blech, like the previous Birur Lacha.
so can we rely on this aspect on the Birkei Yosef also? Because the Birur Lacha is with Tzarchian. But
No, but he didn't say Tzarchian. He says Ach in Utzarch Shabbos ein lo eitz acheres after the Yesh Lishma Chazeh. Not Tzarchian, but he said after the Yishma Chazeh, which the Chazon Ish agrees. Yes, you could be. So here you even have the Chazon Ish to rely on, Mishnah Berurah and Chazon Ish.
if it's not on the fire, if it's on the fire, only Mishnah Berurah.
Yes, so that would be enough. Kamina is the same case we said before about the chicken. In the Shabbaton, you realize that the totally cooked chillin. It has to be totally cooked, otherwise you're nena from Malach Goy, and it can't be nena from it. But if you ask them to do it for you, but if it's totally cooked, so now, but it just has liquid in it, so then it could be someone on the poskim that take the chillin, ask the goy to take the chillin out of the fridge, the totally cooked chillin, which has liquid in it, and put it on. Turn on the fire. The fire is off. Turn on the fire, and then put the chillin on it. And it could be either because you're allowed to tell them to turn on the fire or the sorach, rabim, which we didn't learn that now, but Amir Lagoy, we'll rely on that even for deraisa. It's a ramah. It's a machlokes, but we rely on the ramah for that. And then put the chillin on there. That would be okay to do because you need it for the whole Shabbaton.
Is your family Tzarchi Rabim?
No, it's not.
Shoot.
But if you have guests coming, then then it's considered Tzarchi Rabim.
So, but if the Chazon Ish's problem with the Mishnah Berurah is Shema Yechateh and the Reisha, then now in the second instance where it says Garifikatum, wouldn't that be fine by the Chazon Ish? Like it's still double the Rabbanan, and then you don't have the Shema Yechateh. And so telling the goy to put a marak on top of a blech, what would be the tana not to do that and davka keneged medura?
No, you're right, Nachanami. Because the case of the Madura we were talking about was in a Garfakatum. Nachanami, if it would be Garfakatum, and then or you do it in a way that's, I mean, I'm not. So the Chazon Ish holds that we don't really have a case of Garfakatum today. So the only way to leave something is to leave it, and you have to leave it. Face we spoke about that. Putting on blech doesn't help according to Chazon Ish. So yeah, so the case would be if you put a pot, another pot there. You put a pot on top of it, and then put on top of the pot an empty pot, like the case of the Shulchan Aruch. That Chazon Ish would hold is Keneged Medura also, because the blech doesn't help according to him. But to speak out one last nakuda, it's important to know about. I just thought I'd talk it out. Is that the Mishnah Berurah and Sadiq test? It's a very, very big yesod to know about once we're here. It's not really so much our sugya, but it's important to know that the case of the Mishnah Berurah, it was these matir is you have a tanar beis choref. If you have the thing that heats up the house, it's winter. It's like you're in a Russian winter. It's freezing cold. So you're allowed to tell the goy l'chatchila, this a kol cholim it's letzina. Everyone's considered sick when it comes to cold. You're allowed to ask the goy to turn on the heater in the house. So in those days, there was like a big heating oven in the middle of the house, and you would turn that on. So it's the main reason you're heating it is to heat the house. But there's also a place you could on top of it, you put a pot. The pot will heat up as well. So you're allowed to tell the goy to ask the goy to put the pot you want hot on top of the Tanur Beis Haref, on top of the heater for the house, and then turn on the heater for the house, that's mutter to ask them to do. It's not heating the house because otherwise people are sick. Even though it's a psik reisha, that obviously it's going to heat up the pot now once the pot's on there before. It's psik reisha, and that would be also for a Jew to do anything as a psik reisha, would be an Isser Bishul. But he brings from the Magen Avraham, it's so gadol that we don't say there's no Isser psik reisha, but since the whole Mir La'akum is Drabanan, we don't say psik reisha by Mir La'akum. There's no psik reisha. So something which the goy has one intention, even though it's going to sure cause a different outcome, then and that which is also malacha, we don't say there's no problem with that on Shabbos or Moshe. For just one example of that, Nafkamina, Ramosha and the Tshuva says, according to this, if you forgot to turn off the light in the refrigerator, so you can ask the goy to open the fridge to take out something for you, because his intention is to just to open the fridge to open the door to get something out. He has no intention to turn on the light, so the turn on the light is psik reisha. But that's not a problem. Psik reisha by a goy, so that's not a problem. Rosh Zalman is cholik on this for one reason. Rosh Zalman holds that perhaps he's not totally convinced, but he's more noted to think that since every single time you open the refrigerator, the light goes on, so that shows that opening the refrigerator is not a psik reisha for the light, but it's like you can't say if you turn a light switch. Let's say I turn a light switch because I want to scratch my finger, it's itching. But if I scratch it in a certain way, it's going to be a psik reisha to turn the light on. So ask the goy to scratch his finger on the light switch in a way, because that's the way to turn the light on. You can't. That's not a psik reisha. That's just, the switch is not a psik reisha of the light. That's how you turn the light on. That's how it works. So the way you turn this light on in the fridge is by opening the fridge door. So it's not a psik reisha. It's a direct ma'aseh of turning on the light. And the heter of psik reisha is only if it's an agav of one thing, but it's not always the outcome. Always going to be the outcome. But in this case, it will be the outcome. Like every time you turn on the Tanur Beis Haref, you're not going to heat a pot because you don't always have a pot there. So having a pot there now is a psik reisha. Mashen can't opening the fridge door with the light. Every time you open that, there's a light. So that's not a psik reisha. That's like the door becomes a light switch for that light. That's why he's called Karim Moshe, not mitzad the yisod of psik reisha, but mitzad of the Mishnah Berurah, but it requires a question of application. Can you apply that? Can you consider a fridge door to be a psik reisha, or is that a direct like a light switch for it? So anyway, it's good to know that
Rabbi, the psik reisha, that's the whole idea of psik reisha, is what you're doing is it's directly. I guess maybe that's. I'm confused. I don't understand that so much.
I'm saying that like a psik reisha will be if this act it could be mutter or usually it's mutter. Turning on the lighting the goy for the goy to light the Tanur Beis Haref, right, is usually mutter. There's usually no pot on it. It's a heating element. It's not a stove. It's a way to heat the house. So that's usually mutter. Now it happens to be that there's something else there too. So he still has the main kavana, which is to heat the house with it, even though it's a psik reisha of something like the Vart study is like a side thing that's happening over here. But something that's always going to be like every time, there's always pots on this thing. Let's say, and it's built to always have pots on it for always be cooking. That's the way it's built for some reason. Then that not psik reisha anymore. That'll be a direct act of cooking, because that is a place to cook things as well. You can't say that the main kavana is for this and not for that. So Shlomo Zalman is holding that always turns it on. That becomes with the light switch. Moshe could still hold that since Sof Kol Sof, that's not what you're out to do. It might always be, but that's not. But it doesn't depend on if it's always or not. It depends on what your kavana is, what your main point of you're coming to do this action for. You're coming to do a non-malacha. You're coming to just open a refrigerator door to get food out. So Ramosha holds that even though it's always going to turn a light on, it's still called psik reisha. because the psik ratio is not a function of if it's always or not. It's a function of what your intention is, and if the outcome is a side outcome or it's the main outcome. Since the goy has, even Rosh Shlomo Zalman is maskim to Moshe if the goy doesn't know there's light in there. So you use it's your cleaning lady, your maid or whatever that's knows that you always unscrew the light on Shabbos. So she has she assumes there's no light there even. She's not thinking about that. There's no so. But it happens to me that you didn't. That's why you asked her to open it. So since she doesn't know there's light, then even Rosh Shlomo Zalman agrees that there's no problem. That's a psikration. It's okay.
So, like, what would Rav Shlomo Zalman hold by the light of the refrigerators? Not psik reisha? Was melacha she'en tzorich legufa?
No, it's circle gufa because you want it's made there because you want to light up the fridge.
Yeah, but you don't need it.
You don't need it, but it gives a benefit. It does light up the fridge. So that's not needing it doesn't make it in circle gufa.
Could you say it's in a miskavin then?
It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's there to light up the fridge, and it does. Sorry.
Could you say it's in a miskavin then?
Yeah, but animus carbon, that's good for the din of secretion. Every secretion is animus carbon. It's carbon for this, and this comes out. But it's still nichale.
So by Rav Shlomo Zalman, when you open a fridge and there's a light there, like it's just an isser. It's not psik reisha. It's like literally just an isser.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just that the whole fridge door becomes a light switch for that light. And that's the machlokas of Shlomo Zalman. Moshe holds not that way. He holds that since it's not a light switch. It's a refrigerator door for food. Take out food. There's a light that goes on. Okay, so that's not my intention. So you can't call this door a light switch. It's a door for food.
Wow. There's something interesting I saw about like a plata that you have it on a Shaon Shabbat. If you're allowed to put a soup on it before it turns on, knowing that's going to turn on, that's more like ram.
So that the Chazon Ish holds is usher because the Chazon Ish holds that he talks about that. The Chazon Ish holds that that's called Shtiya L'Chatchila. It doesn't matter if you put the pot onto the fire or the fire to the pot. And the Yasher Pascal is that way. And I think Rosh Shlomo Zalman only said differently because it was on a fire to begin with. For it to put onto another fire, but I think everybody would agree that that's a problem.
So Rav Ovadia Yosef says that it'll be kind of like a tremendous gzeira on top of it because it says that because it's a machloket of poskim, like the soup itself is a machloket of poskim, and it's grama. Then he said he explains that would be too much of a chumrah. He would allow it, not saying do it every day, but I don't know. I need to look at it again, but he allows it.
Okay, I'm not sure what it says, but Chazon Ish doesn't really have to say it's also. It's considered Shtiya L'Chatchila. Okay, so this finishes this siman, and we'll just give out let's figure a time frame to do Chazara on the Gemaras and on Shulchan Aruch, and we'll have a plenary session on that. So we'll send out something next week.
Do you guys have one more question?
Yeah.
What's the deal with like warming drawers? I know they're very popular now, but like, isn't it an issue of the tocha?
But they can't. How do they? It depends how they get it to. If they get it to Yatzaledespo, then yes.
If they can become Yatzaledespo, or if they are Yatzaledespo right now.
If they can bring the food to Yatzaledespo, then it would be considered the socha like a toner.
So on the other hand, I know that like the minhag olam is that you can't just like keep your oven on 100 and then take stuff in and out for Shabbos, even though it's like Yatzaledespo, right? Or could you do that and people just don't do it?
You can leave while the fire's still on. If you leave the fire on, then that is that's an issue. You do it for Yom Tov, not for Shabbos, because it's not garbage. Well, technically you could, because if the food is Michael ben Soy, then I mean, the only again with we paskin, or even let's say if you pass like Sfarad, like the Shulchan Aruch, if it's Uvshikol Tzarko, the Samach Yafa, the Samach Ralo, or according to us, Michael
Yeah.
Benesoy, you could leave it there. It's not a problem.
For Shahir, but I'm saying for Chazar, like people like in my shul, they have. I'm not saying my shul is necessarily halachic, but like I would hope that it is. But like there's a warming drawer, and they put stuff in on Shabbos. And I know many families that have warming drawers, and no one would ever use an oven like this on Shabbos morning. But they'll go and they put, whatever schnitzel in the warming drawer, throw it up for kiddush. So I just like was realizing last week, how is that okay? Because it's what's the difference in that and using an oven that's only on 100? It's not graphic custom, is it?
It's not Garvakatim, so it would need to do Chazara. We need unless it's less than, it just keeps it warm, but not Yatzaledispo. If it gets to Yatzaledispo, then it's considered a toner or kirish and a gufa ketuma that you can't do Chazara to it.
And if it's not graphic custom, but it's not yet bo, then that's what? That's like it's like Chalam Shemimu. It's that sugya.
If it's not Yatzaledispo, the Mishnah Berurah says there's no din toner. It's nothing.
So whatever it is, it could be a stove without a flame, without a blech. It could be an oven. It doesn't matter if it's not Yatzaledis bo. This is just not okay.
Yeah. So, but the question is, could it get to Yatzaledis bo? I mean, now it's not. This was something like this where it's just there's no fire there at all. It's just the walls are still retaining the heat. You have a fire there though that right now it's not Yatzaledis bo, but if you turn up the knob, it will be.
Right.
Then that's the same problem.
So how do you solve that? You'd have to cover the fire and the knobs. You would need to be garvakatim.
I would think so. Yeah.
And so then my follow-up question: how do you make an oven garvakatim? Because there's no exposed flame, anyways.
Yeah, that's a hard thing. If you have to be covering all whatever heating elements there are have to be covered.
But it is possible.
Yeah, or Moshe says for a real oven, they have to make a metal box to put in there, something like that.
I'm gonna pretend that I didn't hear this when I go to shul tomorrow.
Okay. All right. On to Shabbos.
Shabbos, thank you.
End of Hanukkah.
Hanukkah.
Right.